Welcome to MASN All Access. I'm your host, Paul Mancano. Many of you, I'm sure, have gotten the edict to work from home, and we are no different. I'm coming to you from my apartment in downtown Baltimore as our studios at Oriole Park at Camden Yards are closed. But that's not going to stop us from getting you shows, podcasts, guests, news, notes, nuggets galore as we wait for baseball to return to our lives. Now, we know that there are many more important things going on in the world right now than baseball's hiatus, but we also know many of you could surely use a distraction. So let us be your distraction as we wait to get through this. I'll be coming to you every Tuesday at 3 o'clock on all of our social channels. We'll have podcasts every Wednesday as well as we wait for baseball to come back. One thing before we get started, if you hear a dog barking in the background, that's just Helga. She's very harmless. In just a bit, we're going to have Steve Moleski of MASNsports.com on the show, but first, let's take a look at how we got here. Let's start with the NBA, where Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19 on March 11th, and the NBA subsequently suspended their regular season. The day after March 12th, MLB suspended spring training, and they pushed opening day back at least 2 weeks. Day after that, March 13th, players were encouraged to leave the facilities at spring training. That was a change after initially they were planning to host formal workouts. 2 days after that, Yankees minor league player tested positive for the coronavirus. On March 16th, MLB pushed back opening day even further into May as the CDC made a recommendation not to have any gatherings of 50 or more people for at least the next 8 weeks. March 17th, the Orioles, along with every other team in Major League Baseball, established a $1 million fund for stadium workers. And on March 19th, minor league players were to be paid a lump sum up until April 8th as they wait to get through this layover. Last week, Mike Elias spoke with reporters via conference call. He couldn't offer very many updates simply because of the unprecedented nature of the situation, also because baseball's higher powers still are in the dark about what is to come. But he was asked about the 2020 MLB draft, the status of which is very much unknown. Here's what Elias had to say.
I have no inside information at this time of what the draft is going to look like beyond what's been speculated in the media. The league has been very good about communicating with us that they are working on it. There's a committee of scouting directors that are involved in that process. And they have, as recently as today, issued guidance that we're basically freezing all scouting activities so that teams aren't trying to create advantages for themselves during this idle period while there's this public health crisis going on. So I like the fact that we've been officially frozen in terms of our activity. We can still evaluate players using video and data, and the scouts can update their scouting reports. And I've given our staff some pretty specific instructions about how we want them to spend their time while they're housebound. And I am extremely confident that we will be as prepared or more prepared than any other team, given the way that our department is set up and the way they've been working since the summer started. That we'll be in good shape for this draft whenever it takes place and however it takes place. But that's all I know right now.
Do you have an update on Trey Mancini?
Yeah, he's doing really well. His spirits are great. His physical condition is great. He's been up walking around. He's out of the hospital. He's just doing terrific. Things are going well, but obviously it was a major event that he went through, and it's a process. And he's got some more appointments and tests, and we'll update as we go and as best we can. But feel really good about the prognosis and how he came out of surgery, and where he is and where he's going.
Brandon Hyde also hopped on a conference call with reporters last week. His questions were more focused on how he plans to get his team ready for a season without a start date. He provided some insight there.
We're putting together throwing programs and plans for guys individually with the thought of it's an unclear unclear timeline of when to be ready. I think we'll hopefully have a better idea as we go along. But as of right now, it's a real individualized plan for everybody. That our medical team, as well as our trainers, strength coaches, pitching coaches, have all gotten together with on conference calls and how we're going to really talk and put these plans together in place for our pitchers. And those will be adjusted and ongoing as we go along. But the first thing was to get our pitchers in a healthy place, on a safe place. And now we're talking about what kind of throwing program that they're going to be on here for a while, with an unclear date of when that's going to end. But that's going to be, like I said, ongoing and it's going to be individual depending on starter, reliever, etc.
Given your background in player development and what the organization is trying to do right now with the farm system, what kind of impact do you think this layoff has in those areas?
I think it is impactful in that there's guys, there's a lot of development to be had by a lot of players. Obviously, this can cripple the development a little bit in that you want guys to get innings, you want guys to get at bats, you want the guys to go through full seasons. That's really important, especially early on, understanding what it takes to live through a full season and to compete for a full season. So that's going to be cut short. But I think, it's something that everyone's dealing with. There's 30 teams that are going through the same thing, and it's not ideal, and it's going to be tough, but everyone's going to get through it, and we're going to be fine. And if guys have to miss some time and miss some innings and at bats in 2020, that's just we'll roll with it and we'll go from there. But from a player development standpoint, it's you want guys to rack up the at bats, and you want pitchers to have meaningful innings, and right now they just can't do that.
Now we bring in Steve Moleski of MASNsports.com. Steve, thanks so much for hopping on here. We know the circumstances are not typical, but thanks for joining this video call here on MASN All Access.
You got it, Paul. Strange days indeed.
They are strange days. You were down in Sarasota, Florida, as the Orioles were wrapping up their camp earlier than usual, of course. What was your experience like being down there as MLB was suspending spring training, and then you were finding out, the news was trickling out slowly, that players were eventually going to be sent home? What was your experience like right in the thick of all of that?
It was really strange, really crazy. I mean, initially MLB announced the clubhouses would be closed. I think that was that Monday, and the season would be canceled or postponed on Thursday. So that Monday, we started to do interviews outside. You've been in the complex, outside, the building, with the 6-foot distance, which was strange in itself, to be talking across the table at someone. It was strange for the players. It was strange for us. But the Orioles were obviously just doing the best they could per the mandate from Major League Baseball. It was nothing any of us wanted, but we were doing the best we could. And then, of course, as it went on that Wednesday night, NBA and then NHL followed, and then you knew, well, wow, this was really serious, and MLB could be next, and they were. And it was strange on that Thursday, which would have been March 12th, because the Orioles had a night game. Games were going on. We assumed there would be the last games going on. Would the Orioles play at 6 o'clock? Well, the Nationals are playing at 3 o'clock, and it turned out the Orioles didn't play, and that led us all to where we are today.
And of course, we're all in kind of unfamiliar territory here as nobody really knows where this is going to head and how long this is going to take. But based on what we've heard on the NBA side, on the NHL side, it seems like a lot of leagues are preparing for a pretty long layoff, especially with the Olympics now officially being moved back a whole year. Do you have any kind of sense of if baseball will be played in 2020 and how long it'll take to get back?
I really don't, and I don't think anybody does. I think all options and all possibilities are out there, including a quick return, which might be Memorial Day, to a late return, which might be late July, to no return, which is possible. Putting 30,000 people in a stadium, it's hard to imagine that today as we speak with the social distancing and all that's going on in our country and the world. But at some point, knock on wood for all of us, they'll turn the corner and it'll start getting better. But is that going to happen in time for MLB is the answer. And I'm sure MLB is going to take every precaution, not going to put anybody in danger. So it's going to be a while, it looks like.
And there are all kinds of ripple effects with this layoff as well. Mike Elias was made available on a conference call last week. You asked an interesting question, I thought, about how this could impact the international signing period, because not only is there a new international signing period at the very beginning of July, but there's a current international signing period going on. There are ripple effects all over the baseball world, especially with the MLB draft. How do you see this impacting the Orioles team building over the next few months? It has the potential, I feel like, to make a huge impact.
It does, and maybe not in a good way. As it relates to the international signings, the date that the international signing period we're currently in is due to end is June 15th. Now, the top players are long gone. We know that. The top-ranked players, the touted, the hyped guys. But as Kobe Perez, the Orioles head of international scouting, has explained to me, when you're dealing with players so young, sometimes they come fast through the year. And a player might be playing or pitching or developing differently in April, May, June than he was 6 or 7 months ago. And if a team like the Orioles has money remaining, they might sign some players. They did this last year, and they liked some of the guys they got late. They felt pitchers were throwing faster than they had earlier. And so it was a way to get late bloomers, as he called it. If you can be 16 and a late bloomer or 17 and a late bloomer in the international market, you kind of can. So it's a key time, and it sounds like it's a dormant time. No one can scout. No one can even reach out to players. So how can you sign someone if you can't even call them on the phone? So right now, I think that's just a quiet time.
And if there is no MLB draft, or it is pushed back significantly, that could potentially set back a team like the Orioles, who of course hold the number 2 overall pick in that MLB draft, and it could kind of set back the rebuild in just a little bit. What kind of impact do you think it could have if there is in fact no MLB draft?
I think that would be really bad for the Orioles. Of course, they hold the number 2 pick. It'll be just their 4th top 3 or higher pick in team history. And so they want to make that pick. I mean, there's some really good players out there. Some of the college guys I wrote about yesterday on MASNsports.com, this list of 5 had really separated themselves, according to Carlos Collazo of Baseball America, who's an expert on the draft. And I mean, all 5 look good. I mean, the Orioles would probably be delighted to have any one of the 5 after Detroit picks number 1. So they want to make that pick. They have 4 in the top 75, Paul. These could be 4 players critical to the next 5 or 10 years of the franchise. So if you're Mike Elias in the club, I'm sure you want to make those picks starting June 10th, and you're hoping that's exactly what you get to do.
So in terms of the on-the-field product, of course, we don't know when, if baseball will return in 2020. But if baseball does return at some point, they're definitely going to need some kind of spring training part 2, a reintroduction to spring training, if you will. How long do you think that might take? Could it be as long as an extra month of spring training ball, whether it be down in Sarasota or up in Baltimore? Or do you think players will only need about a week to ramp themselves back up into game shape?
I can see it being a bit of a rush job, because I think it's hard to have the game be gone so long as it will be at that point and say to fans, another month until we play games that count. And while it would take probably that month to get pitchers fully ready, maybe Major League Baseball will say we're just in a situation that we can't stretch them out to 6 or 7 innings. I mean, if we could see opening day happen with pitchers that can only go 3 or 4 innings, and maybe rosters that are 30 or 32 with 15 or 18-man pitching staffs, maybe that's just what they're going to have to do, because I think that's a better alternative, and allows them to get games that count underway faster, play more of a season, maybe extend a couple weeks on the back end. I mean, again, all things are possible here to try to play the most games possible and create a season that has some relevance and recoup some income. I mean, these teams are when the games aren't played, all the income that they incur to run their teams, they're not getting. So they're going to try to play as many as they can. And I don't foresee a month-long ramp-up. I think they're going to need to do it sooner.
Well, Steve, you have been keeping fans entertained, of course, at MASNsports.com. Besides writing articles, how have you been spending this off time? Because 2 days from now, it was supposed to be opening day. You've got a lot more time on your hands, as does just about everybody.
Exactly.
How are you spending your time, Steve?
It's been a little boring around here, but I'm getting some streaming services for the first time in my life. I'm watching some old television shows. I think I'm going through the first season of MASH now. Started a couple of days ago. I watched, I rewatched a great 30 for 30, I guess ESPN called it. The Band Wouldn't Die. I highly recommend it. It's basically how the Baltimore Colts marching band stayed intact when the Baltimore Colts left town. And they're really the link between the Colts and the Ravens. When the Ravens came to town, they embraced that band and made them their band. So the Baltimore Colts marching band became the Marching Ravens, and John Zeman, a lot of people in Baltimore know him. It's an amazing story, and bring a tissue if you're a longtime Baltimore sports fan like me, because it's emotional. So stuff like that, you don't really get a lot of time to watch, So I've been thinking, what should I watch that I don't normally or wouldn't normally look to do? And I think it's great PBS is allowing free viewing, pbs.org, of the baseball series with Ken Burns. I mean, that'll take you a while to get through, right? That'll kill some time. So that, and just trying to come up with interesting things to write and keep the blog going. And I guess Rock and I are for temporarily in winter mode. When there's not a game to write about, we still keep cranking, as you know, practically every day at MASNsports.com. So the fun never stops, Paul.
Yeah, of course. If Christmas Day is a day where Rockabaco can post on MASNsports.com, I'm sure he can post now at this point. So we appreciate you taking the time, Steve, and keeping that content going at MASNsports.com, keeping fans entertained and engaged, because we all know we could use a little bit of a distraction as we wait for baseball to come back. So thanks, Steve, and thanks for hopping on here, MASN All Access.
You got it, Paul. Enjoyed it.
Well, as we wait for baseball to return, we decided now would be a good time to debut a brand new series called 20 in 20. We'll be featuring 20 Orioles players to watch in 2020 and beyond. We decided to start at the top of the 2019 MLB draft with Adley Rutschman. A lot has been placed on the broad shoulders of #1 overall pick Adley Rutschman. But if anyone can handle it, it's Adley, who was the most outstanding player in the College World Series 2 summers ago. Rutschman played on 4 different squads in 2019. Everywhere he went, he flashed potential at the plate and prowess behind it.
Throw down to second base. He got him by a mile!
Adley got his introduction to Major League competition this spring.
Having the opportunity to be able to catch some of the guys who are, going to be thrown to the big leagues and whatnot, I think it's a great opportunity, and I'm really excited for it.
And before being sent to minor league camp, the 22-year-old left coaches and teammates with a great first impression.
It's fun to watch Adley just catch sides up there. It's fun to watch him.
Adley had a pretty wild 2019. He went from Oregon State to the #1 overall pick in the June draft, to the Gulf Coast League, then to Aberdeen, and finally to Delmarva. Here were his cumulative stats in pro ball among those 3 teams. 37 games, .254 average, 4 homers, 26 RBIs, and a .774 OPS. No telling where he starts in 2020, but of course, with this guy, the sky is the limit. So our question for you is, when do you think Adley will make his major league debut? Will it be in 2020, 2021, or beyond? Leave a comment or reply down below. Well, before spring training was put on hold, the Orioles hosted the 5th annual Athletes and Artists Play for Kids event down at Ed Smith Stadium in Sarasota. Featured live performances from top country musicians and songwriters, and proceeds went to the Orioles Charitable Foundation's Music and Arts Education Scholarship. It was an all-around good time. Take a look.
It's outstanding. Last year was obviously our first year. I was blown away by this event, and when you tell the players this is happening, there's a lot of excitement. Something that we're really supportive of, and we're happy to be here.
Tonight we have people from not only Nashville who are coming in here as our talent to donate their time to perform tonight. We also have sponsors from Baltimore and Sarasota, along with more than 60 of our players who are here to support the event.
All these things are opportunities: music, sports, drama, ballet, efforts to really connect with the community and be a source of mentoring and development for young people. That's what baseball's about. That's what the ball club, the Orioles, are about.
I think when you bring music and athletes together and artists, everyone has a good time, because a lot of athletes want to be musicians, musicians want to be athletes, and so I think it's just a great way for one to bring everybody together, and then two, obviously, to boost the community, and that's where I think it's a great combination.
Ray Lynn is a Grammy-nominated artist, and Jordan Schmidt, who's written, gosh, I don't know, half a dozen number ones in the last couple of years.
It's also really important to us and the players to get involved in the community and support community efforts that the organization supports for youth education, and we do that in Baltimore and Sarasota and wherever we can.
It's awesome. I mean, I think that's really for athletes and for artists as well. I think that's probably our most impactful group, is the next generation, the kids, the young ones that haven't really made up their minds yet what they're going to be, but if we can do something to make their path a little bit easier, then why wouldn't we?
Don't forget, we've got shows every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And, of course, we've got podcasts every Wednesday. Myself and Bobby Blanco are the two hosts. You can catch it on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can get the MASN All Access podcast. New episode tomorrow. Thanks to Hannah Broder and Bobby Blanco behind the scenes today. Stay home, stay safe, and stay positive. There's only one way we're going to get through this, and that is together. We'll see you tomorrow.